Next on the 5 o'clock report.
Everything in this life, everything that God intends to do, He does through relationships.
Top of the morning to you. I'm Kathleen Mary Courtney Hochul.
We live in a day and an age in state politics where activism is the method of communicating with elected officials.
Your identity isn't in your sport. Your identity is wrapped up in what Jesus Christ did for you.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. Twister tally. There's more to count, but the National Weather Service says so far they've chronicled as many as 82 tornadoes in 9 states since Thursday.
It still doesn't feel real. It seems like a bad nightmare.
7 EF3s, 2 EF4s, more than 40 dead. It was one of the deadliest storm outbreaks since 2011.
Some of these homes that took a direct hit in this community were picked up and thrown 50 or 60 feet.
Winterboro Community Church in Wayne County, Missouri says almost everyone that lost their house is out there helping clean up someone else's house.
What we're going to see in a time like this is we're going to get to see a community at its best and seeing the best in people rise up and serve each other. Everything in this life, everything that God intends to do, He does through relationships.
There's a sweet story out of Poplar Bluff, Missouri today after a 3rd grader saved the lives of her entire family. Mom Kelsey Webb heeded the 8-year-old's warning that they needed to go now.
I was like, we've stayed here through several tornadoes. It'll be fine. And then she was like, no, Mom, we need to leave.
Minutes after they drove away, their home took a direct hit from a tornado that dropped from the sky. No warning. The house was obliterated down to the cement floor. 8-year-old Elias says she's grateful God told her it was time to go.
Yeah. We wouldn't be alive.
The top edge of that storm slapped us last night. Wind gusts over 60 miles an hour were clocked in Binghamton and in western and central Pennsylvania. Andy Ansel lives in the town of Acme in western PA. He called it intense.
The wind started blowing, rain started hailing, it got black, just everything come this way. I was holding the front door shut. I thought the windows was going to cave.
At one point, 86,000 people were without power in Pennsylvania, 80,000 in New York. That number's down to 13,000 in the Empire State and 40,000 in PA this afternoon. The White House is set to have a showdown with a federal judge at this hour. That judge wants to know whether or not the Trump administration ignored his order not to transfer about 250 migrants to El Salvador over the weekend. The White House has already responded.
All of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says these weren't just illegal immigrants.
These are monsters who tortured and murdered 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungre. They murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. They led a multi-state trafficking operation.
The hearing will be about whether or not the White House can continue with deportation flights to El Salvador. The Pentagon just held its first briefing of the second Trump term. They outlined their job the next 4 years.
Bringing moral clarity back to the United States of America. We know who the enemies of this country are and the enemies of a free world are. And President Trump has put them on notice.
President Trump is scheduled to talk with Russia's leader tomorrow about a possible end game in the war with Ukraine. CBS reporter Holly Williams.
Ukrainians in general at this point don't have very much trust for Vladimir Putin. Remember, he invaded this country in 2014. Then he agreed to a ceasefire, and then he invaded again in 2022.
New York Senator Chuck Schumer just postponed his tour for his brand new book. Democrats not too happy with him after he sided with Republicans on a bill to stop a government shutdown.
He was supposed to be starting a book tour and doing book signings, and I just heard from his publisher that they are postponing those signings because of security concerns.
There's an abortion war going on today on social media. Family Life's Mark Webster has details.
It started when one of the nation's largest ice cream makers, Ben & Jerry's, posted a meme on X on Sunday proudly recognizing National Abortion Provider Day with clickbait that landed users on their website with an article that read, quote, anti-abortion activists have increased their efforts to intimidate and silence providers and close clinics. It linked to a fund drive to fight the pro-life movement. Now, the post immediately prompted responses from the Daily Wire's Michael Knowles and Abby Johnson, a former Planned Parenthood executive turned pro-life activist who called it disgusting, rebuking Ben & Jerry's for, quote, cheering for the slaughter of innocent innocent human beings. Fellow pro-life advocate Allison Setafani wrote, "Bye-bye, Ben & Jerry's." Mark Webster, Family Life News.
And it is St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's sock, check. Wool cap from Donegal, check. Riverdance soundtrack, check. Let's do this.
Bobby Angel with Ascension Presents broke down the real reason behind the celebration of St. Patrick's Day on a short video on YouTube.
When he was 16, he was kidnapped by Irish pirates and brought to Ireland, and there in slavery had to work as a sheep herder, where he spent a lot of time just trying to escape. But he also had a radical conversion of faith there. In that trial, in that hardship, he was praying daily hundreds of times, he writes in his confessions. And eventually he escapes.
He then returned to where he was imprisoned to help them know Jesus Christ too.
Eventually becomes a bishop. He asks to be sent back to Ireland, back to the land of his captors. And there he travels all around, evangelizing the people and converting the country more or less to Christianity.
That was in 8400. Today, 76% of Ireland claims to be Christian, some 3.5 million people. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, Legislative Day on deck in Albany. Trees and power lines down across the Empire and Keystone states, and rain couldn't stop Buffalo from their St. Patrick's Day parade. Those stories after weather with Kevin Williams.
We've got some warmer weather on the way, and high pressure set to deliver a fair amount of sunshine to complement that warmth as well. Tonight, though, is going to be chilly make, no mistake about that. A few patchy evening clouds, but turning out clear, low temps 20s to near 30. But tomorrow and Wednesday, good deal of sunshine and warming up very nicely. High temperatures tomorrow in the 50s to near 60. High temperatures on Wednesday in the 60s to near 70. Note, however, it'll be quite a bit cooler both afternoons along the immediate shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories, making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. It's a bit windy out there today after the big storm last night and lots of trees down. Southport, New York Fire Chief Tim Sweeney says if you come in contact with a downed power line, stay away and stay alert.
Just keep their eyes open for things that don't look right on the street and keep an eye on power lines. Don't drive through power lines. Don't drive through whatever looks like a power line, because no one knows. Governor
Kathy Hochul marched in the St. Patrick's Day parade today in New York City.
Top of the morning to you. I'm Kathleen Mary Courtney Hochul from County Kerry, and very proud to be the first Irish governor in 40 years.
She had a face-to-face meeting Friday at the White House with President Trump and gave some insight on what happened behind that closed door.
My willingness to talk about areas where we could have a common interest does not take away from my responsibility as a leader of the state to fight back and fight back hard when the line is crossed and you've hurt New Yorkers or attacked our values.
Hochul at odds with Trump after he declared the U.S. government recognizes two genders. Hochul also doesn't agree with tariffs.
There may be some long-term gain that the president sees, but why are we making people suffer right now? They've been through enough. Inflation, the pandemic. Our people are hurting. They just want people to give them money back in their pocket.
Buffalo opted to have their St. Patrick's Day parade yesterday, just as the worst of that storm rolled through.
I hope Moses parts the sky. They rained on the parade. It's almost 70 degrees, but it feels like 45.
When it rains, the parade stops.
Yeah.
But St. Patrick's Day doesn't stop.
Yeah, never.
The parade, just 45 minutes long this year. People in Buffalo didn't seem to mind, though.
It's a great time to spread information about Irish heritage, Irish culture, and what Irish people have meant to Buffalo and Western New York.
The Empire State just unveiled a platform to simplify drug price complaints for New Yorkers. It's called DFS Connect and allows those living in the state to report random unannounced price spikes as well as the rising cost of prescription medication. Pennsylvania Speaker of the House Joanna McClinton rallied for equal pay for women today at the state capitol.
We should pay women fairly. We should change the law.
The Democrat says there's 3 million women working in Pennsylvania, many who aren't making what their male counterparts make in the same jobs.
Paid what her resume reflects. Paid for the years she worked up to building the experience for that opportunity. Paid in appropriation for the amount of time she spent in school. Paid in a way that brings dignity not only to her work, but most importantly brings equity.
Speaking of equity, hundreds of Christian activists will descend on Albany tomorrow for Legislative Day, the premier event of the year for the socially conservative, politically involved faith-based community.
We live in a day and an age here in state politics where really activism is the method of communicating with elected officials. And there are groups that travel there by the busload from all over the state for various issues, for every issue really. And this is that time of year when believers, followers of Jesus Christ, come to the Capitol and let the state legislators know their position on the issues. We are dangerously close to the passage of assisted suicide in this state. We have a continuing transgender issue here in our state. While many states are moving away from that, we're digging in the heels here in New York. There are so many issues that need to be heard, and this is an opportunity with a collective voice to rise up and say to the legislature, listen to our concerns.
Jason McGuire with New York Family says tomorrow's rally is all about being proactive instead of reactive when it comes to culture wars. Our own Bob Price will be in Albany tomorrow, and we'll have team coverage right here on Family Life. Next at 5, a sit-down with Mike Blank of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. What is it like to minister to college athletes across the United States? Let's listen in.
You treat them like how you would treat a professional athlete. Number one, you have to make sure that this athlete understands and know that my role is here to simply love you, to encourage you, and to pour into you. I want nothing out of you.
Can you talk about success stories where sharing the gospel and doing that kind of Christian servanthood has made a difference for somebody feeling that stress of the way college sports has become so intense?
I'm blessed to be able, in my role, have interactions with our staff that serve on college campuses all across the country. I had a young man that came in and, he was making a lot of money. People seen him this way, that way. And we came in, he got involved with Bible study. He got involved in all these different things and really was able to have a firm foundation on top of that. And the biggest thing with FCA, what we're reminding athletes and our coaches, our reminder to them is that your identity is not in your sport. Your identity is in Jesus Christ. And so we've had so many success stories where athletes that maybe they got injured or I was a starter and now I'm second string. They've gone into some type of depression because their identity was so wrapped up in me being a starting quarterback. We've had so many staff that said, hey, I've come across this kid and he allowed me into his life. And I just had to remind him that God loves you just as you are. And your identity isn't in your sport. Your identity is wrapped up in what Jesus Christ did for you.
That's Mike Blank with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. You can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing in the green on St. Patrick's Day. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 353 points to 41,841. The S&P 500 added 36 points to 5675, and the Nasdaq rose 54 points to 17,808. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
Have you ever seen a rose window? Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. You probably have, at least in a photograph. A rose window is a large round window, usually made of stained glass, found in many churches built centuries ago. Such windows typically have a series of smaller windows within the circle, all radiating out geometrically from the center. And in the center, there's usually a depiction of Jesus. In other words, these windows illustrate the idea of Jesus in the center and everything else finding its place around him. That's how our lives should be. Everything we do with our time, our careers, and yes, our money should radiate out from Jesus at the center. Connect with a certified Kingdom advisor who's been trained to deliver financial advice that aligns with your Christian values by visiting our website, faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, how long would you wait to get married? This couple may be close to breaking some records. That story after weather with Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. We've got some warmer weather on the way and high pressure set to deliver a fair amount of sunshine to complement that warmth as well. Tonight, though, is going to be chilly make. No mistake about that. A few patchy evening clouds, but turning out clear. Low temps 20s to near 30. But tomorrow and Wednesday, good deal of sunshine and warming up very nicely. High temperatures tomorrow in the 50s to near 60. High temperatures on Wednesday in the 60s to near 70. Note, however, it'll be quite a bit cooler both afternoons along the immediate shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally, at 5, Scripture says love is patient, but this might have been pushing it just a bit. A World War II veteran met Jean Stacy when they were kids, and then they lost touch for a long time. Then 25 years ago, they met again thanks to a shared mailbox in their community. This weekend, the residents of Meadows Manor in the Luzerne County borough of Dallas, Pennsylvania, finally decided they'd waited long enough. They got married. The groom is 101 and the blushing bride, a relative youngster at 87. Jean's granddaughter tells WNEP,
well, just cements that it's never too late to be with the person that you love, whether it's 25 years or less than that, it's never too late.
Love delayed but not denied. And that's the world that we live in for Monday, the 17th of March. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.